About that. Okay, guys, happy Friday. So today is September 25th. And today, after what happened yesterday, where we had a lot of people that weren't quite prepared, I went ahead and after you guys left, I took some time to record the day 9 video, which was really hitting the pause button, which is what we had to do yesterday. We tried to go forward in block 1 with some figurative language stuff. It was challenging yesterday, right? So, and I admit as a teacher, I know that was not my best lesson. So today and yesterday and all the other classes, we went just hitting the pause button, reflecting on what we needed to have done, which is what we did yesterday, Parker. You and I, we were talking about that. So if you look at yesterday's post, I made sure that on the Google Classroom, I listed exactly the things that you guys should have done, which were the things we talked about yesterday. These 3 pages in your notebook, and then this is where we should be in the readings. All right, so today, guys, I decided I wanted to change the plan from what I had originally planned. Okay, I had originally planned that we were going to go ahead and, no, we don't have any. I was going to originally move forward. We were going to read King Arthur in class and do some other things where we talked about the book. But what have we missed so far this year? We're already up to chapter 4. What we've missed, Cheyenne, is this reading out loud, reading together and talking about the book. And one of my big goals is to make sure that you guys leave having positive attitudes towards reading. And I didn't think I was doing my best job I could do with that. So today I want to focus on that. So I want to spend today reading aloud with you these first 4 chapters, making sure we're all understanding the story together, we're understanding the characters and the setting and the basic situations, and just enjoy the reading today. So today I'm going to be reading out loud to you, and I've given you guys a graphic organizer that we're going to use to help us organize the things that I think are important in the beginning of the book, okay? So that's my goal today. So ultimately, Michelle, you still do have a homework assignment, all right? Can you read, what is the homework assignment that should be in your agenda?
Finish reading The Legend of King Arthur and answer
Comprehension
questions 1 through 4 and complete sentences.
Very good. So I'm going to pass this out to, you guys have it at home, I'm going to pass this out to you guys here. This is, The Legend of King Arthur is actually a full-on story. This is just a little page and a half. It's like a consolidated version, just the stuff that you really need to know about this legend. This legend is so important because one of our main characters, Free, he just loves this legend. And he's constantly making allusions, it's one of our forms of figurative language, or references to King Arthur. Even the title of our book is an allusion to King Arthur. And I know that you guys have missed that. It's called Free the Mighty. And after reading The Legend of King Arthur, you might be able to understand the title a little more. We're going to spend some time later on talking about the title of Free the Mighty. But this legend, it's very short. There's 4 questions on the back. All you have to do is try your best to answer the 4 questions. Casey, some of the answers are going to be right in the passage. Other answers, you're going to have to kind of think about it and put a little bit of your own thinking and opinion in there. It's going to ask you, why do you think some of these things, okay? It's just 4 questions, though. So I'm going to pass this out so we get the homework out of the way right now. Put that in your ELA folder or your take-home folder if that's where you like to put your homework. Now, ladies and gentlemen, on your desk, you all have a graphic organizer that looks like this. Today, I'm going to be reading out loud to you. There's these. And as I do, I want you to record information onto this graphic organizer.
Okay.
This graphic organizer is focusing on 2 of our actual literary elements. Okay, guys online, you guys can mute yourselves, please. 1 is the setting. This is one of the literary elements that we're going to be getting a closer look at. The other one is you guys, in chapters 1, 2, 3, what we're going to probably read today, you're going to meet Max, our main character, and Freak, our other main character. You're going to meet these two characters. Okay? So as we read, anything that has to do with the setting, the where and the when the story takes place. A setting is also a when. Okay? For example, what is the setting for you for block 1, Parker? Right, that's the where. Now when is it? From 9 o'clock until 10:10. So a setting is a where and a when. So anything that has to do with the where the story takes place or when, but also anything that would help you describe the setting. All right? If you were to describe our setting, where Mr. Trumbull's classroom, we'll describe the setting. Mr. Trumbull, he's got Harry Potter banners on the wall. He's got a weekly agenda on the back. You want anything that helps you describe the setting. Because if you were saying Max's house, okay, that might be the setting, but does it help me get a picture of Max's house in my head? No. So if you were to describe his backyard as being very covered in dirt patches and this chunky chain link fence, and he lives down in the basement, and does it help you start to get a better picture? So whenever we're talking about setting, it's not just a where and a when, but it's also a description of that setting. Okay, so I can understand that setting better. And then the next thing you guys are going to do is you're going to learn about these characters, Max and Freak. Anything you learn about the characters, about Max, put it over here. Anything you learn about Freak, put it over here as we read. All right? And then I will also be asking you guys other questions as we are reading, because I really want to model the way that we should be thinking about our reading. All right, so you guys right now, open up your Freak the Mighties to page 1, chapter 1. You guys should all have your book on. Okay. Chapter 1, The Unvanquished Truth. I never had a brain until Freak came along and let me borrow his for a while. And that's the... Hold on. We need to shut that door. Okay. Chapter 1, The Unvanquished Truth, take 2. I never had a brain until Freak came along and let me borrow his for a while. And that's the truth, the whole truth. The unvanquished truth is how Freak would say it. And for a long time it was him who did the talking. Except I had a way of saying things with my fists and my feet, even before we became Freak the Mighty, slaying dragons and fools and walking high above the world. Okay, I should already have things written down. Very first line of that book, guys, says, I never had a brain until Freak came along. Automatically, I now know something big about Max. How does Max feel about himself? Michelle?
He feels dumb.
Max feels dumb. Write it down, okay? Max is dumb. Now, actually, I wouldn't say that. Max is not dumb. Max feels dumb. Okay, to him, Max is dumb.
Weird.
Okay, what else do you know about Max? Anything, just opening paragraph.
I know something about Freak.
Okay?
He's really smart.
Freak is smarter.
Max was getting, upset because people kept on doing,
But we don't know that. From this one paragraph, what does Max do? He has a way of saying things with his... What do we know about Max?
He's angry a lot.
He's angry a lot. He hits people.
Strong.
Maybe he's strong. I don't know. Maybe his punches are weak. Okay, but he hits people. He's angry. All from his opening paragraph. Now, does the book come out and tell you Max is an angry kid who hit people?
No, it just describes what...
So, what we're doing there, Michelle, is we're making inferences. These are things we're learning about our character, which the book doesn't come out and explicitly tell us. Now, we're not going to stop after every paragraph, but I want you to understand, that's the kind of thinking as we're reading that you guys should be doing. All right? Don't just see the words for what they are on the page. Think about, what are these words saying? What am I learning about the characters? Okay, and as I'm reading, you guys can have your pencil in your hand. You can be writing things down, following along. Okay, and just as you hear things, jot them down. Called me kicker for a time. This was daycare, the year Graham and Grimm took me over. And I had a thing about booting anyone who dared to touch me, because they were always trying to throw a hug on me, like it was a medicine I needed. Graham and Grimm. Bless their pointed little heads. They're my mother's people. her parents. What does it mean when he says, Graham and Grim, they're my mother's people? Just,
Grandmother and grandfather.
okay, they are. These are his grandparents. What's that? Okay, so he lives with his grandparents from his mother's side. All right, we know that he lives with his grandparents, and the grandparents are his mom's grandparents. All right, so again, I want to understand these characters and how they all fit together, so you guys can understand all of them. Graham and Grim, bless their pointed little heads, they're my mother's people, her parents. And they figured, whoa, better put this little critter with the other little critters his own age. Maybe it will improve his temper. Yeah, right. What happened? I invented games like kickboxing and kick knees and kick faces and kick teachers and kick the other little daycare critters because I knew what a rotten lie that hug stuff was. Oh, I knew. That's when I got my first look at Freak, that year of the phony hugs. He didn't look so different back then. We were all of us pretty small, right? But he wasn't in the playroom with us every day. Just now and then he'd show up, looking sort of fierce is how I remember him. Except later it was Freak himself who taught me that remembering is a great invention of the mind. And if you try hard enough, you can remember anything, whether it really happened or not. So, maybe he wasn't really all that fierce in daycare, except I'm pretty sure he did hit a kid with his crutch once. Whacked the little brat pretty good. And for some reason, little kicker, so he's talking about himself, never got around to kicking little Freak. So here's my question. At this point in the story, where is Max?
At daycare.
No.
Daycare.
He's not at daycare.
In the playroom at daycare.
He's not in the playroom at daycare.
He's at his house.
Probably at his house. We don't know exactly where he is, but he's not actually at daycare. He's just remembering daycare. So if we were really to say the setting, we're in Max's memory. Physically where he is, I don't know. All right, at this point. Now we'll get to it because he tells you we're at his house and he's just remembering. Okay? So, yes, we're in daycare, but we're not in daycare. We're only in daycare in Max's memory because he's telling us about things that happened in his past. So it would be no different than Michelle if I asked you to tell me about when you met your first grade teacher. You tell me the story, but where are you? You're in Mr. Trumbull's class, but you're remembering a time when you were in first grade. Right? So Max isn't a little toddler right now. All right? He's older, but he's remembering a time when he was younger. All right, back to page 2. Maybe it was those crutches. Kept me from lashing out at him. Man, those crutches were cool. I wanted a pair for myself. And when little Freak showed up one day with these shiny braces strapped to his crooked legs, metal tubes right up to his hips, why, those were even more cool than the crutches. I'm Robot Man, little Freak would go, making these weird robot noises as he humped himself around the playground. Like he had robot motors inside of his legs going, and this look like, don't mess with me, man. Maybe I got a laser cannon hidden inside these leg braces. Smoke a hole right through you. No question, Freak was hooked on robots even back then. This little guy, 2 feet tall, and already he knew what he wanted. All right, I'm going to pause for a second. If you have not written anything down about Max or Freak, now would be a great time to write something down about Max or Freak. Cheyenne, what's something that you know about Freak? Okay, Freak used to like robots. And I like the way you use used to, because we don't know if he's still into them now. But when he was little, he was all about the robots. Jocelyn, what's something that you wrote down about Freak or Max?
Freak had braces.
Freak had not braces like on your teeth, but like leg braces. Okay? So what does that tell you about Freak? If Freak has leg braces, what inference might we be able to make, Rylan?
He either has broken feet or is crippled.
Okay, either he's got some kind of a broken feet, or he might be crippled in some way. All right, how about one more person? Want to tell me something that they wrote down, Sophia?
I wrote that
Max is angry. What tells you that Max is angry? If you're going to claim he's angry, where's your evidence?
my evidence is that he said that he uses, before drinking one, he was using his feet.
To talk. Yeah. Okay. All right, Parker, last one, and then we're going to keep reading. Max likes to kick. All right, who does Max live with? Did anyone write that down?
I did.
Okay, this is something we know about Max. All right, so don't overlook those kinds of details. Who does Max live with, Casey? He lives with his grandparents, his mother's parents. He lives at his grandparents' house. Then, I'm on page 3. Then for a long time, I never saw Freak anymore. One day, he just never came back to daycare. And the next thing I remember, I'm like in the 3rd grade or something, and I catch a glimpse of this yellow-haired kid scowling at me from one of those cripple vans. Man, they were death ray eyes, and I think, hey, that's him, that's the robot boy. And it was like, whoa, because I'd forgotten all about him. Daycare was a blank place in my head, and nobody had called me Kicker for a long time. Mad Max, they were calling me, or Max Factor, or this one butthead in LD class called me Maxi Pad until I persuaded him otherwise. Graham and Grimm always called me Maxwell, though, which is supposed to be my real name. And sometimes I hated that worst of all, Maxwell. Ugh. Now, did anyone catch the fact that what class does Max go to? Well, it's in the, you don't have to guess, it's right in the passage. LD. Does anybody know what LD stands for?
I'm going to search it up.
No? I love that idea that you were, I'm going to search it up. And you probably can, it won't be disruptive. But LD stands for Learning Disabled. Okay? So Max might have a learning disability. Max takes a class for students who have learning disabilities. And so that's what he's saying. This one kid in my LD class called me Maxi Pad until I persuaded him otherwise. How do you think he persuaded him? How do you think he persuaded him, Rylan?
Beat him up.
Probably beat him up. That's what it sounds like, doesn't it?
Maybe that's one of his issues.
Max has issues with his fist. His issues with his anger, right?
Yeah.
I wonder, so the question that comes into my mind is this, Parker. I wonder if we're ever going to learn why Max is so angry. I wonder if we're going to learn why Max is this way. Why does he kick people? Why does he punch people? Why is he so angry? Alright. So, well, I don't want you to guess because right now that's all it would be right now. It's kind of a guess. What I'm modeling for you is as you're reading, your brain is going to be generating questions about your reading. Like I'm reading about this character and I'm thinking, why is he this angry? And that's what you want to do as you're reading. You want to generate questions, all right, as you're reading. And most likely, Parker, a lot of the times when you're generating these questions, I guarantee you, the book's probably going to get to them, all right? And I know because right now they would be guesses because we just don't have enough information. Let's keep reading. Grimm, out in the kitchen one night after supper, whispered to Graham, had she noticed how much Maxwell was getting to look like him? Which is the way he always talked about my father, who married his dear departed daughter and produced Eek Eek Maxwell. Grimm never says my father's name, just him. Like his name is too scary to say. Yesterday I had you guys go look at this passage. Alright, and I drew a picture on the board. My picture was pretty pathetic. But we know that Maxwell lives with his grandparents. Alright? And so in between the grandparents and Max is his mom. His mom is in there. Okay? And Grimm is describing his daughter as dear departed. Okay? Does anybody know? I asked you this question yesterday. Did anybody figure out what does it mean if somebody is dear departed or dearly departed? I know, I'm curious if anybody bothered to try to figure it out.
Separated?
Good guess.
Means they're dead.
But no. I heard someone online, what does it mean if you're dear or dearly departed?
It means they're dead.
They're dead.
Dead.
Max's mom is dead. Which answers the question, why does he live with his grandparents? His mom is dead. Do we know where his dad is? We don't know where. So this, look, guys, Max. Max's mom is dead. We don't know where Max's dad is. And Max lives with his grandparents. Are we starting to get a picture of maybe why this kid is angry?
Yeah.
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 Uh-huh.
Yes, I'm starting to get a picture here. Because his dad isn't around anymore.
His dad's not around. We don't know where his dad.
And his mom is dead.
And his mom is dead. And he has to live with his grandparents, who are probably old and raggedy. You know old people.
His dad killed his mom and then is now in prison for life.
Well, that's a crazy notion.
I mean,
It's certainly a possibility. Alright. Let's keep reading. Alright, so we have some of these. See how the pictures starting to come together about Max?
Ryland's theory makes sense about Max because Max's dad might actually done that because they're always worried about Max being dangerous.
Okay. Well, let's keep. What do you guys need? I just want to remind. What do you need to do if you want to share? You want to raise your hand? And listen, it'll just make for a more seamless conversation. Because this is the kind of conversation. Remember yesterday when I wanted you guys to be talking and you weren't? This is the kind of conversation I want us to be able to have, where everybody wants to jump in. Okay? Ryland, do you want to finish with a final thought before I keep reading?
And she calls him that could scare him maybe because he did kill her. And it's because he's starting to act like him because he's all mean, so it does make a lot of sense. Very positive.
A lot of the puzzle pieces fit in your theory, so we'll find out if you're right. Alright, let's keep on reading. Very bottom of page 3. It's more than just the way Maxwell resembles Ford. You got to be following along, Casey. You have to follow along as I read out loud. You should see the words as I'm reading.
Giving me Mr. Trumbull.
Grim says that night in the kitchen, the boy is like him. We better watch out. You never know what he might do while we're sleeping, like his father did. And Graham right away shushes him and says, don't ever say that, because little pictures have big ears, which makes me run to the mirror to see if my big ears make me look like him. What a butthead, huh? Well, I was a butthead, because like I said, I never had a brain until Freak moved down the street. The summer before 8th grade, right? That's the summer I grew so fast that Grim said we'd best let the boy go barefoot. He's exploding out of his shoes. That barefoot summer when I fell down a lot at the weirdo robot boy with his white yellow hair and his weird fierce eyes moved into the duplex down the block with his beautiful brown-haired mom, the Fair Gwen. Only a falling down goon would think that was her real name, right? Like I said. And are you paying attention here? Because you don't even know yet how we got to be Freak the Mighty, which was a pretty cool, even if I do say so myself. So in this last page, we learned a little bit more about the setting. Okay, you guys said he was in daycare, and then we read about a time that he's in 3rd grade. At the very last page, we finally know how kind of old he is. It is, go back right here in
He's in 8th grade.
the summer before 8th grade. Good catch, though. It's the summer before 8th grade. So, when is it for Max? It's the summer before 8th grade. Write that down, Casey. Write that down for the online people. This is an important part of the setting. If I was to ask you, Parker, you know, when did you have Mr. Trumbull as a teacher? When I was in 6th grade. Alright? This is part of the setting. Alright? Part of the setting is the where and the when. And so far, you know, where are we? For the most part, where are we, Parker? Yeah, in his memory. He's just remembering. He's just remembering as he's telling the story. A lot of the pieces fit. Okay, let's keep on reading. So now we're at the end of chapter 1. We now know that it's the summer before Max's 8th grade year. And so far, in this very beginning, we have Max, our main character. We've learned a lot about him in a situation. And here, he seems to be talking about what other character? Freak. Alright? So now we're going to move into chapter 2, where we're going to start to get to know Freak a little bit better.
And we're gonna learn the quiz.
Okay, up from the down under. We're on chapter 2. Up from the down under. That summer, let's see. I'm still living in the basement, my own private down under. So again, we know Max doesn't just live at his grandparents' house. He lives in there. He lives in their basement. I'm still living in the basement, my own private down under. In this little room Grim built for me there. Glued up this cheap paneling, right? It sort of buckles away from the concrete cellar walls. A regular ripple effect. But do I complain about the crummy paneling or the rug that smells like low tide? I do not. Because I like the down under. I got the place all to myself and no fear of Graham sticking her head in the door and saying, "Maxwell, dear, what are you doing?" Not that I ever do much of anything. Grim has it fixed in his head that I'm at a dangerous age and they need to keep me under observation. Like I might make bombs or start a fire. Or whack out the local pets with my trusty slingshot or whatever. Except I never had a slingshot. It was Grim who had one when he was my age. The proof is right there in the family photo album. You can see this blurry little miniature Grim with no front teeth grinning at the camera and yanking back on his prehistoric slingshot. Good for whacking mastodons, probably. I'm on page 6 now. Just proper targets, Grim says, closing up the photo album. End of discussion. Like, oops, better hide the evidence. Don't want to give the dangerous boy any ideas. So, Michelle, I think it was you. You had mentioned Grim and Graham have this perception of Max. What is it that they think about Max?
They think he's gonna be bad when he's older.
Yeah.
Like a bad guy.
They're kind of... Rylan, you just wanted to add something.
Murderer.
Wait, I don't want you to take that big a step. We don't know that. All we know is they're a little afraid of him, right?
Yeah.
They're a little... Max is... They don't want him...
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah. They definitely are cautious about Max. All right, they think he's at a dangerous age. Casey?
They don't want him to start a fire or light a bomb.
Okay. They're afraid that he might do dangerous things.
It does make sense why they are kind of scared, because their first father was really that bad. Plus, they're like old people.
Okay.
He's
Well-
in like 8th grade, so he's kind of older thing.
You're right. Well, Ryland's theory is good. What I want you guys to do is we have to base our thinking off of really what we know, okay? And again, Ryland's prediction is not a bad prediction, but based off of what we do know, we know that his dad is simply not around right now. We do know that his mom has passed away, and the grandparents, they don't want Max to kind of be like his dad. He looks like him. We don't know what bad things his dad might have done or anything. We just know that he's not around. So does it sound like Grim and Graham? Does it sound like they like Max's dad?
No.
No. It does. It sounds like that. So that's about as far as I would go. It's not that, again, Ryland's prediction. I stick with your theory. If you feel strongly about your theory, you stick with that theory, all right? And we see if the puzzle pieces are going to fit that theory. But I want every person to be able to think about the facts, what you guys know, and think, okay, Because what I'm thinking is, I'm thinking maybe Grim and Graham just never liked Max's dad. You know, that certainly happens where parents, your moms and your dads, they might not like some of your boyfriends and girlfriends you bring home later on when you're in high school. All right? And that's the case. So maybe Grim and Graham simply didn't like their dad, and maybe they got a divorce, and that made them mad. So maybe that's why they don't like him. We don't know. All right, so...
But them saying, like how Max said, they say it like his name is Scary. Kind of leads to that.
And that's a good point. I love that you bring that up, too. It's a brilliant point. You're saying, hey, but Mr. Trumbull, think about this. I got this fact right here. So what you're doing, Parker, which is good, is you're going to the evidence. You're going right back into the text. You're saying, but this is right here. Okay? All right, let's keep going. I want to read more. I'm on page 6. Not that I have any ideas. Did I read this part yet? No, my brain is vacant. Okay, I'm just this critter hiding out in the basement, drooling in my comic books or whatever, all right? I never actually drool, but you get the picture. Anyhow, this is the first day of July, already counting down for the 4th and wondering where can I get an M80, which is supposed to have an explosive power of a quarter stick of dynamite or something. And when it goes off, your heart thuds to a stop for a microsecond. Wham! What kind of figurative language is that?
That's onomatopoeia.
Yeah! Onomatopoeia.
Yeah.
Or sound word. Wham! Maxwell, armed with dynamite. He's not actually saying like eek eek. It's like a sound. It's a sound word. So finally, I get bored in the down under and I'm hanging out in the so-called backyard. Your basic chunk of chain link heaven. Grim keeps this crummy little mower in the shed, but what's the point of mowing dirt, right? Okay, I'm out there messing around, and that's when I see the moving van. Not your mainstream nationwide brand name mover either. Just some cheapo local outfit. These big bearded dudes in their sweaty undershirts, lugging stuff into the duplex, half that's been vacant since last Christmas, when the dope fiend who lived there finally got busted. At first, I'm thinking the dope fiend is back. He's out of jail or whatever, and he's moving his stuff back in. Then I see the Fair Gwen. Alright, so first, the setting. Okay, what do we know about Max's neighborhood? Because this is not Beverly Hills. Okay? Michelle?
Kind of like a bad neighborhood.
This is probably a bad neighborhood. Why? What makes you say that?
Because it said there were people moving back into their house.
Yeah, look at how too, Noah.
I don't know, just
For me, David colors are blue.
What makes you had your hand up, Sophia?
Yeah.
But why? What makes how do you know that this is a bad neighborhood that he's living in?
Because it's like Michelle said,
Jocelyn,
because they said that there's a dope fiend,
what's a dope fiend? How would you describe that?
a drug addict.
A drug addict. Okay? So he thinks that the person moving back in is a drug addict who's just getting out of where?
jail.
Jail. Alright? So this is the kind of neighborhood he lives in with these kinds of. He also describes his backyard as not having what? Grass.
It's all chicken.
It's all chain link fence and there's patchy and so this is not necessarily a neighborhood that you perhaps would want to live in with these kinds of people. Okay? So again, he lives in a neighborhood where this is a tough neighborhood. It's a rough neighborhood. People that live in his neighborhood go to prison. Some of them use drugs because that's who Max is moving in back down the street. Okay, back on page 7. Then I see the Fair Gwen. Not that I knew her name. That was a little while later. At first, she's a glimpse. Caught her going between the van and the front door, talking to the beards. And I'm thinking, hey, I know her. And then I'm thinking, no way, butthead. No way that you would know a female that beautiful. Because she looks like some kind of a movie star. Wearing those old jeans and a baggy t-shirt. And her long hair is tied back. And she's probably sweating, but she still looks like a movie star. Like she has this glow, a secret spotlight that follows her around and makes her eyes light up. And I'm thinking, well, this improves the old neighborhood. You're thinking, yeah, right. The goon is barely out of 7th grade. Who does he think he is? All I'm saying, the Fair Gwen had star quality. And even a total moron can see it. And the reason she looked familiar is, I must have seen her bringing Freak to daycare. Way back in the dark ages. Because the next thing I noticed is this crippled up, yellow-haired midget kid strutting around the sidewalk, giving orders to the beards. He's going, hey, you doofus. Yeah, you with the hairy face, take it easy with that box. That box contains a computer. You know what a computer is? Now, what you guys have to know is this book was written back, I think, late 80s, early 90s. So, right now, every single one of us have computers sitting on our desks. We have computers in our pockets on our phone. I'm recording this on a computer, my phone. But back then, it was really rare for anyone to have a computer in their house. I didn't get my first computer till I was in college. In high school, I knew one kid who had a computer. There was one kid who had a computer. It was very rare for people to have computers in their house. So here's Freak being very protective over this thing. I mean, nowadays, would you ever have to ask someone, hey, you know what a computer is? No. Jocelyn?
Weren't they like super big back then?
Yep.
Yeah,
They were big, they were bulky, there was towers, big monitors, big keyboards,
Just
cords,
like TVs.
cords everywhere. Alright,
TVs weren't like
aside from that, I want to keep going. We got about 5 more minutes. Alright, bottom of page 7. I can't believe it. By then, I'm sneaking along the street to see what's going on. And there's this weird looking dude. He's got a normal sized head, but the rest of him is shorter than a yardstick and kind of twisted in a way that means he can't stand up straight and makes his chest puff out. And he's waving his crutches around, yelling up at the movers. Hey, Gwen, one of the beards says, can't you give this kid a pill or something? He's driving us nuts. So Gwen comes out of the house and pushes the hair out of her big brown eyes, and she goes, Kevin, go play in the backyard, okay? But my computer! Your computer's fine. Leave the men alone. They'll be done soon, and then we can have lunch. By this time, I'm hunkering along in the front of the place, trying to maintain a casual attitude. Except, like I said, my feet are going wild that year, and I keep tripping over everything. Cracks in the sidewalk, ants on the sidewalk, shadows, anything. Then, the strange little dude jerks himself around, and he catches sight of me. And he lifts a crutch and points it up at my heart. And he goes, identify yourself, Earthling. Now, I'm busy keeping my feet from tripping and don't get that it's me, that he means me. I said, identify yourself, Earthling, or suffer the consequences. I'm like, what? And before I can decide whether or not to tell him my name or which name, because by now I recognize him as the weird little robot kid from daycare, and maybe he remembers me as Kicker. Anyhow, before I can say a word, he pulls the trigger on that crutch and makes a weapon noise, and he goes, then die, Earthling, die. I motor out of there without saying a word because I'm pretty sure he really means it. The way he points that crutch is only part of it. You have to see the look in his eye. Man, that little dude really hates me. Man, he wants me to die. But before we do, guys, we just learned a bunch of stuff about Freak, too. Now, think about his physical description when Max is describing him. He describes him at the top of page 8.
Describes him by a weird-looking dude. He's got a normal-sized head, but the rest of him is shorter than a yardstick.
So he's really short. He's got kind of a normal-sized head. We know he's all twisted up in a way that he can't really stand up straight. We know from previous chapters he's got crutches and he's got braces on his legs.
And something on his hips.
Okay, and something on his hips. Okay, so here you got this little tiny guy named Freak. All right, who's crippled
Is that
up.
actually
But
his name?
you're gonna get his name. If you read chapter 3, you should know his name. Chapter 3 has his name, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay, but so here you got Max, this big guy who thinks he's dumb, he's not smart. Okay, them describing how he's tripping over his feet because he's growing so much, he's growing so fast, his feet keep getting bigger. So you got big old Max, right, who thinks he's dumb, and then you got little tiny Freak, who happens to be wicked smart. That was my best Boston accent. Yeah, so you got this super smart little Kevin paired with this big Max who feels like he doesn't have a brain. Okay, now, it's about 10:10, which means there's only 2 minutes left in class. We read the first 2 chapters. You guys, on your own, you read through chapter 4. So you've read chapter 3, you've read chapter 4. This is, you don't have to do this. Your homework assignment is Legend of King Arthur. Okay. But one of the things you can do is now that we've really tried to take some time and set the scene, you really understand these characters, their situations. We know Max's situation, how he's living with his grandparents. His dad's not around. Mom is dead. He just feels like a dummy. He's in learning classes for the learning disabled. Then we have Kevin. As you have this understanding, if you went back now and was to reread chapter 3 and 4, they might make more sense to you guys. Okay? We always read, but some of the times I say it's important that you reread. Because now we've had a conversation, so your understanding of the characters is now deeper. It's better, Cheyenne. So if you were to go back and reread chapters 3 and 4, you might be like, well, this makes sense now. Or, ooh, I caught this thing now that I missed before, because maybe I didn't have that same understanding. Okay? Now listen, guys, it's Friday. I'm not going to, usually I try to give you guys papers for Monday and Tuesday and all that. But I'm going to be reevaluating some things over the weekend about how I want to move forward. Your homework is to read The Legend of King Arthur and answer those questions. And then ultimately, your homework. I need to see that you guys are getting on Monday. I have to really see if this is going to work. If this is going to work, you guys have to be responsible. And it's not just you guys plus Mrs. Faulkner students. Everybody has to be responsible, at least to get on Monday and Tuesday when you guys are not here, okay? And I know some of you have, all right? I think I've seen Michelle every day, okay? And I know it's new for some. So if I haven't seen you, I'm going to assume, you know what, it's just going to take you a little longer to adapt to new habits and routines.
Yeah.
All right? So hopefully, Monday and Tuesday, I want to see that you guys are getting on, all right? And we're also going to be doing the ELA STAR test next week and your STAR math. All right, so next week's going to be a bit of a weird week. So it's a good week for me to kind of reevaluate the first couple weeks and see our best way to go forward.
Star test
All right?
online?
Yes, it's all online. You guys are going to take your STAR tests on Thursday and Friday.
We'll be here.
Yeah, you're going to be doing them here in school. Okay. That way, basically, all the A-Day kids will take the STAR ELA on Monday.
Well,
They'll take the STAR math on Tuesday. You guys will take your STAR ELA on Thursday, and you'll take your STAR math on Friday. So next week is kind of an assessment week where we're going to be checking in with you guys to figure out exactly where you're at with your reading and your math skills, okay? So your homework is just Legend of King Arthur, okay? Legend of King Arthur, that's your only assignment right now that you guys got to work on. All right. You guys can take a second. You guys can